Hey everybody, today I would like to discuss Pallbearer and focus on ranking their full-length albums. Pallbearer are an epic melodic doom metal band. They formed in Little Rock, Arkansas in 2008, and at this point they put out 5 full-length albums, 2 EPs, and a couple singles. Pallbearer are definitely my favorite active band right now, but I've also had my ups and downs with being a fan. And we'll get to that as we go. I saw them live, seen them quite a few times, but the most recent time was about a week ago in Toronto, and I walked out of there with a renewed enthusiasm for the band. And I thought it'd be fun to take these records out and talk some Pallbearer. So we're going to start off with the demo from 2010. And what this is 3 songs. You have demos of The Legend and Devoid of Redemption, which would both go on to be on the debut album, Soaring Extinction. And it's rounded out with Gloomy Sunday, which is kind of a shorter song and a bit of a lost Pallbearer track, if you ask me. And the most recent EP is 2016's Fear and Fury. Another 3 songs. You have the original Fear and Fury, which I saw perform live just the other day. That's the first time I've seen them perform that song. And 2 cover tracks. You have Over and Over, a Black Sabbath song from the Dio years, and Love You to Death by Typo Negative. And the original Love You to Death is one of my favorite songs of all time, and I definitely think Pallbearer do the song justice, fairly faithful to the original while making it their own. Both of these EPs are one-sided vinyl. That's a pretty cool one. So that leaves just the songs Dropout and Atlantis being the only original Pallbearer material that hasn't found home on a physical format. And there's also a Pink Floyd cover of Run Like Hell. So I think the move is to get those 3 songs and put them together on a CD or vinyl. And of course I'd be picking that up right away. And especially Dropout. I love that song. Kind of reminds me of some of the stuff on Forgotten Days. And I definitely like to hear more songs of that nature in the future. So we're going to rank the albums 5 up to 1. And my number 5 is the 4th album, Forgotten Days, from 2020. I definitely listened to this album 10 times when it came out and just decided that while definitely like an 8 out of 10 easy, I thought it was a step down for Pallbearer and kind of made me feel like they're just an awesome band now, but not my favorite band. But again, I've come back around to them being my favorite band. But I don't know what it is. The first song, Forgotten Days, even though it's a great track overall, it starts off with probably the most boring riff of Pallbearer's career. This album came out in the somewhat early days of COVID, so I never saw them live to support this album, and maybe I didn't get any sentimental attachment to it. And I also am not a huge fan of the sound cover. Let's take a look at the vinyl briefly. It's a double black. And there's my CD copy. But let's keep looking at the songs here. So after the aforementioned Forgotten Days, you have Riverbed and Stasis. And those songs are definitely probably amongst the most accessible commercial tracks of Pallbearer's career. Probably even more so than the new stuff. Because the new stuff, some of it is somewhat softer than this, but I think that's also definitely an acquired taste. But again, Riverbed and Stasis, shorter, more immediate tracks. I especially love the guitar riff during the chorus of Riverbed. Track 4, Silver Wings. Definitely the album starts getting a little bit more epic here. Sounds like something off of Foundations of Burden crossed with something from Heartless. That's a great track. The Quicksand of Existing, that's number 5. Definitely a little bit more hard-hitting, but a good one. Vengeance and Ruination, followed by Rite of Passage. They might be the low point of the album. And then it ends with Caledonia, another solid track. So again, this is an 8 out of 10 easy. Totally recommend it. But at this time, it is my least favorite Pallbearer album. My number 4 really surprised me. This was always my second favorite, but over the last year, I feel it's lost a bit of ground. But again, I mean, everything from here on up to me, personally, it's 10 out of 10. Heartless, the third album from 2017. And before we start talking about the music, this might be my favorite piece of Pallbearer merchandise. Just really well done. Kind of a translucent green and white. There's my CD copy. This album seems to be regarded as Pallbearer's most progressive album. And although that might be true, even though I don't know certainly that I would say that, but I can see where people are coming from. But when you listen to it now, like, it isn't really all that progressive. It's still the doom metal that you love from the band. But the first song, I Saw the End, I believe that was the first single. My first thought was, this is Pallbearer, somewhat commercialized and streamlined. And I was a little bit iffy on it at first, but it won me over in the end. Thorns, maybe the heaviest song on here. Live Survival, good one. But number 4, Dancing in Madness, that is the best song on here. My second favorite song on here is A Plea for Understanding, a lengthy, emotional, raw song. Probably the most vulnerable and quiet thing the band has done up until the most recent album. But that song definitely pulls at the heartstrings and has a amazing vocal performance from Brett on here. Number 3, the debut album, Sorrow and Extinction from 2012. Again, this is definitely the doomiest material that Pallbearer ever put out. But there's always been something very unique about it. Just whenever I put on this album right away, I think everyone that listened to this album had their mind blown the first time. I guess the closest comparison is Candlemass, but I think they sound nothing like Candlemass for the most part. The first song, Foreigner, leading into Devoid of Redemption. 2 fan favorites, 2 classic Pallbearer songs, live staples, and they might be my favorite back-to-back metal songs on any metal album of any year. I think it's that good. The 3 closing songs, The Legend, An Offering of Grief, and Given to the Grave, they definitely pale in comparison to the first 2 songs, but another 10 out of 10. So, before we move on, there's my CD copy, the first Pallbearer thing I ever bought. Total blind buy, just on it being on Profound Lore during a time when I pretty much bought everything that Profound Lore put out. So my number 2, I am going there. The brand new album from 2024, Mind Burns Alive. orange and black. There's my CD copy. I definitely had a mixed first listen to this album. So I generally do not listen to singles before the album comes out. I just want to take in the album as a whole and not have anything stick out. But for some reason, I took the first song, Where the Light Fades, and put it on a playlist. And then one night I was just hanging out with my wife and that song came on and I didn't know what it was. And right away I was like, what's this? I don't like it. Why is it on my playlist? Turn it off. So I get up and I look at my phone and it's the new Pallbearer. I didn't know what to make of it. So I didn't listen to any other singles and waited for the album to come out. That song, Where the Light Fades, is the first song. And I do have to admit that is my least favorite song on here. I don't really like those first couple minutes of vocals. My first thoughts were, I wasn't being close-minded about the sung vocals. You look at something like A Plea for Understanding on Heartless, and that was an incredible performance, and I couldn't see why he couldn't keep that same vocal style going here. But it wasn't to be. He's going for a more down-to-earth, vulnerable vocal performance. Kind of reminds me of Catatonia, just how it's very, the emotion is all over his voice. The next song, though, Mine Burns Alive, one of the highlights here. Just about a perfect track. And it keeps going with Signals. That might be the best song on here. Endless Place. That's 3 amazing songs in a row. The amazing songs continue with Daybreak, but it's a little bit different. It's kind of going back to the first song, a little bit more of a introspective, again, vulnerable vocal performance, and that song goes on to have an amazing climax. And then finally, with Disease, the closer is definitely the heaviest song on there, bringing it back to the first couple Pallbearer albums. So again, even though tracks 1 and 5 are my least favorite, in their own right, they definitely rise to amazing climaxes. And the album overall, again, 10 out of 10. I might have a couple small complaints, but that's just my opinion as an artistic statement. I'm blown away and very happy. One of the highlights here is definitely the lyrics. Pallbearer have always excelled with singing about personal struggle, but we all have problems, and it's all vague enough that we can relate to it. And extremely well put, especially Signals and Endless Place. And seeing those songs perform live for the first time definitely took it to another level for me, for sure. The band, from the beginning, was saying that this is a grower, that's for sure. And hearing new details every time, I totally agree. Because this album is not what I expected. I expected them to go very progressive and just take the Heartless direction and increase that tenfold. That's what I thought. I also suspected maybe they could go in the Riverbed, Stasis, Dropout vibe and kind of simplify things a bit, but remain heavy. But what they did here was just make the most minimal album of their career, the most stripped back, but in many ways the most emotional. And seeing this perform live and listening to it pretty much every day for the last couple months has given it masterpiece status with me. So that leaves us with my number 1. You know what it is already. That is Foundations of Burden, the second album from 2014. This might be their most popular album, but I think it's with good cause. This is the first run of vinyl that came out. It's on a double red and black. And this is definitely one of my favorite albums of all time. Where to begin? Worlds Apart. Every time I hear it, blows me away. It's just so good. I don't know how they did it. I was showing my wife that song last night, even though she's been exposed to Pallbearer for sure. I was just kind of boring her with going on and on about music, and I was just blasting Worlds Apart, and again, phenomenal song. It keeps going with Foundations. Seen them play that live a bunch of times. One of the heaviest songs on here. Watch Her in the Dark, masterpiece. The Ghost I Used to Be, that's just a all-time song for me. It gets its hooks in you right from the first 2 seconds. The chorus, when that starts with him saying "faded eyes," just gives me goosebumps every time. That climax about 2/3 of the way through the song. I love the lyrics. I've always taken that as just kind of being just being the person, just being you. Again, Worlds Apart, those lyrics are just about there's no good without the bad. Very simple aspects of the human condition, but Pallbearer just always nailed the lyrics when discussing these things. Track number 5, Ashes, more of a short interlude, but great in its own right. And then it closes off with Vanished, which is definitely my least favorite song on here. But it's a great track closing off another masterpiece. So that's it for Pallbearer. Definitely got a lot more to say about the band, a lot more memories that I associate with the band. And if you care, join me for the next one. Thanks for watching.